To work or to stay home with your baby? That is the question. Or that used to be the question. Or maybe we just thought it was the question. The truth is, we have more options than mothers have ever had, thanks in part to pioneering feminists who came before us, advances in technology, and changes in the way we do business. Not to mention the fact that our lifespans are getting longer and longer, so we have more time to reimagine our careers in different stages of life. It's also true that some of us have more options than others, depending on financial, cultural, social, and family situations, as well as our interests, training, skills, and level of education. This is a very personal choice and one that we will make again and again. Whichever options we choose, we will probably question those choices from time to time, especially when we see other moms who make different choices. For this reason, motherhood and work is a big, controversial, and really fascinating topic. Consider this episode the start of a conversation about this topic, the tip of the iceberg, the opening of that proverbial can of worms. This is the How She Moms podcast with Whitney Archibald. I'm a mother of 5 on a mission to help moms connect with your kids, manage your homes, and create your own unique version of motherhood. I curate ideas from different moms so you can pick and choose what works for you and your family. This series of 3 episodes about the transition to motherhood started out as 1 episode and quickly exploded into 3. First, about all the surprises that come with being a new mom, then about identity, and now a big one, work, which will in turn explode into many more episodes. Today we'll focus on this pivotal time for making career decisions right after you have your first baby. Over the next year or so, we'll be talking about the twists and turns of our careers, how we work at home, from home, and away from home, how we start businesses, how we take a break from the workforce, how we re-enter the workforce, and whatever else comes up. When I said this episode is the beginning of a conversation, I really mean it. I want to know about the career decisions you've made as you've navigated motherhood. I want to know how COVID has impacted career and motherhood for you and how it's changed the way we will look at both work and motherhood going forward. So the best place to join this conversation about work and motherhood is on the How She Moms Facebook group. I'll talk a little more about this at the end of the episode. I'm going to start by sharing my own career story. I always planned on being a stay-at-home mom. That's what my mother and her mother before her did, ad infinitum as far as I know. I guess you could say it's the family business, quite literally. With this legacy came the pressure usually associated with a family business. My mom hoped and expected that I would choose the same career as she did. And it was an easy sell because I could tell she really loved being a stay-at-home mom. And she did it well. She was always learning new things. She was trained as an elementary school teacher and definitely got to hone those skills and talents as she raised us. She had hard days, but my overall impression was that she got a lot of joy and satisfaction from her career. In fact, she told us frequently that she loved what she did. It's no surprise that I wanted to follow her career path. I also loved my career as a magazine editor, which lasted longer than I expected due to years of infertility. When I finally got pregnant and told the CEO I wasn't coming back after having my baby, he said, "You'll never last. You'll be back." But I didn't want to come back. I'd waited 5 years for this baby to finally come, and I wanted to stay home with him. So I did. But I didn't want to give up writing and editing completely either. So I didn't. I dropped the monthly magazine and continued to be the editor of a quarterly publication from home. It was the perfect situation for that time in my life. I wrote and interviewed during nap time. I limited my travel to California and Las Vegas, where my mom could conveniently take care of my son. It was great. I got to keep some adult interaction in my life, keep my skills up, and keep doing fulfilling work that I loved. As I had more children, I continued to scale back until I quit completely when I was pregnant with my 3rd baby. For the next 10 years, I was a full-time child caregiver, homemaker, stay-at-home mom. I have a whole episode coming up about the job titles we use for this job, so stay tuned. I didn't think of this as taking a break from my career, but as a career change. I very much consider being a stay-at-home mom a legitimate career. Then, 10 years later, when my youngest went to preschool, I started How She Moms to merge my 2 careers as a writer and stay-at-home mom. I have loved my career trajectory. It has been perfect for me and has helped me learn and grow in ways I could never have expected. Now, let's meet Raj Peterson, a dear friend who had her first baby a few months before I had mine. Our boys were best buddies in their early years. She also went into the family business, but in her case, that business is surgery.
I was always around it because my dad was a surgeon. So it wasn't the first thing I thought about. I thought about being a vet for a long time when I was a kid, but then realized I was allergic to a lot of animals. So that didn't work out. And then in high school, I started going to the hospital with my dad and going to work with him. and just really enjoyed seeing his interaction with patients. And then as I got older, I got to go in the operating room with him and just really liked the environment and what he did. But really, we'd see patients in clinic together, and they would be so grateful for, what he had done for them, and just seeing how he would interact and build relationships with them. That really intrigued me. And he was also, he was super busy as a surgeon, but I also just remember him being around a lot too. So it wasn't a turnoff like I know can happen. And I think a lot of that is he never complained about his work or anything. And so all of those things just solidified that that's what I wanted to do. And then of course I was pre-med in college and then had a detour for the rowing team for 6 years. But when I went back to get a master's before med school, and then really enjoyed being back in school again, and then applied to med school. And once I got there, I was like, yeah, I totally made the right decision. I really loved every day of it. I liked everything that we learned.
By rowing team, Raj means the Olympic rowing team. She was a coxswain in the 2000 Women's Olympic team. By the end of her 3rd year of medical school, she and her husband, Johan, decided it was time to start their family.
It just seemed like a good time. We were ready, and it was a good time in life at that point too. And so I got pregnant at the end of 3rd year, which meant I was in my 3rd trimester interviewing for residency, which was interesting. But I sort of front stacked my schedule, because in med school you have a little bit of control, and especially the 4th year after you've matched in residency, there's not a whole lot of high pressure stuff going on anymore. So really I had Bjorn, and then I had 2 months of just classroom stuff, no patient care. And I would just bring him with me to school, which everybody loved too, because it was a good distraction. And then I had 2 months off before residency to just hang out at home with him. And then when we moved to Rochester, Johan stayed home for a month when I started intern year. So Bjorn got a lot of time. I mean, he almost got 6 months of just being home and not having to go to daycare, which was really awesome for him. But yeah, the timing worked out so great for me with him, just because I didn't have anything crazy going on in my life by that point. Paired during residency. Yeah, right. But it was, it was as mellow of a time as it could be. And then just having 2 months off with no obligations was pretty awesome. So knowing that I wanted another kid during residency did mold, where I was going to go for that too. So Mayo was just, everybody had a family, and it was so family friendly that all the places I picked seemed to have residents who are married and have kids, and I knew would understand when I would go out on maternity leave during residency as well.
Like me, Raj has loved her career trajectory. It's been perfect for her and has helped her learn and grow in ways she could never have expected. She's also a fantastic, loving, supportive mom. Her son's awesome Montessori school taught him that cool way of putting on jackets, plus they potty trained him at least a year before my son or I were ready. He was a sweet, social, smart, and well-adjusted toddler and preschooler. And now he and his brother are kind, funny, smart, and talented teens. But as happy as we both are with our career decisions, both of our paths have also been hard. Working outside of the home is hard. Working from home is hard. Taking care of kids is hard. Managing a home is hard. That is why it's called work. Hopefully you also find joy, fulfillment, and validation within the work you've chosen. But yeah, staying at home with kids isn't all park days and crafts. Working in a hospital isn't all fascinating surgeries and grateful patients. And working in an office isn't always about stimulating projects and conversations. Usually, career decisions start well before a pregnancy. We first start hearing that big question when we're kids. What are you going to be when you grow up? And though the answer changes as we grow, we usually give 1 or maybe 2 answers. When we graduate from high school or go to college or pursue other training, there's even more pressure to come up with that one big answer. We have to find a job or pick a major. This is a big decision for a pretty immature stage in our lives, and it's a pretty blind decision. We usually don't even know our current selves that well, let alone our future selves. We're making big decisions for a woman we don't even know yet. We don't know if we'll get married or who we'll marry, if we'll stay married, whether we'll have children or how many, and what specific needs those kids will have. But relax, because this is the first myth we're going to bust today. You don't have to pick and stick. Choosing a career is not the one-time, one-answer question that we think it is. In fact, most people make several job or career changes over the course of their lives. The Bureau of Labor doesn't actually track statistics about how many people completely switch careers because that's pretty hard to determine, but the average person switches actual jobs 10 to 15 times after age 18. There's a whole spectrum of possibilities. At one end, some moms work full-time out of their homes before, during, and after having kids. At the other end, some moms make a lifetime career out of raising children and managing their homes. In between are moms who work before kids, take a break to stay home with them when they're young, and then go back to work. Moms who work part-time, moms who job share, moms who work from home, moms who start their own businesses, etc. Many moms have a second or third or fourth act where they completely change careers, even going back to school to pursue new fields. Some moms are the sole source of income for their families, some have a contributing partner. Since we're talking about the transition to motherhood today, we'll focus on the career decisions we make at the beginning of our motherhood journey. Especially when the early stages of motherhood coincides with the early stages of our careers, all we can do is figure out what we think we want to do, move forward, and be flexible. Maris Young learned about flexibility in a big way when her career didn't go as planned.
While I was still pregnant, I had in my mind that I would continue with my full-time job, which already was in conflict with the ideal that I had in my mind, because my mom never worked outside the home when we were younger. But I loved my career. I thought I would have the baby and go back to work. And I really did not consider who would watch the baby or how I would actually go to work and be able to manage like pumping and breastfeeding and like being a wife, managing all of the household things and also having a child. And so after all of those things came to fruition, I really had to take a look at what I was expecting of myself or what I thought other people were expecting of me and come to terms with what felt right for me in that moment and what felt right for my family in that moment.
Maris is now a stay-at-home mom, a writer and podcaster at Young Honest Mother. You can also find her on Instagram at Young Honest Mother. Ashley Brown is another great example of being flexible and adapting as she goes. She chose nursing as her career in college and started working as a nurse.
When I transitioned to being a mom, I remember vividly, like, the whole trajectory of my life has changed. Like, what I wanted then, like, I was really on the path to being like a career woman, even though I still am, but like more so the typical like 9 to 5 career woman. When I had my child, I was like, don't know about this. Like I was about to get my doctorate and everything. And it like totally changed my mind. And I was like, no, I don't think I want the doctorate. I think I want to start something of my own. I think, I still want to help women and people, but I was like, I want to do this in a different way to be able to invest more into my daughter and into my children. And so that transition really made me evaluate what truly I wanted in my life and where I wanted to be like 10 years down the line when, she was like getting into being her teenage years. And
for Ashley, that looked like transitioning to being a nurse educator, which helped her discover her passion for teaching. She also started her own company, Routine and Things, and a podcast by the same name, with workshops and products to help moms create routines. This has been a great outlet for her teaching talents and allows her to spend more time with her 2 daughters than she would have as a full-time nurse. And she could never have predicted any of these shifts at the beginning of her career. Now let's hear from another mom, Diana Visser.
I had decided that I wanted to go back to school and get my master's degree in elementary education. So I signed up for school to do that, and about 2 weeks into the master's degree program, I found out I was pregnant. So that was fun. And obviously, like having not had children before, I had no idea what to expect from being pregnant and being in graduate school. So for the first 9 months, I was in school and working a full-time job and pregnant. And I managed to actually get away with only missing 1 class out of the whole program because I was literally having a baby at the time, and went back like 3 days later with the inflatable donut and sat in class. And
oh my goodness.
Finished. I did student teaching when she was 6 months old and all the way through when she was 8 months old, and we just made it work. So she jokes that she has half of a master's degree now because,
Yeah, no,
she was there learning it all.
She's so smart.
Right.
Yeah, no
She was
kidding.
there learning
No
it
wonder
all.
she's so smart.
Right.
Oh, that's awesome.
I was doing graduate school and working full time, and I had a baby. And so it was hard. Like, I felt like when I finally finished my master's degree, and she was almost a year old at the time, and I was able to come up for air. It felt like the first year of her life was the longest year of my life because so much was going on. And I did have some guilt about putting her in daycare so that I could finish my degree and work. I was working at a preschool, so she was at the same place I was at, which was really nice that I could like peek in and see her, but it's still just not the same to be able to like stay home and with your infant. I went back after 4 weeks because both my husband and I lost our jobs. Well,
Oh, no.
while I was in school and trying to make all this happen. So the first one to get a job was the one that had to go back, and so I was the first one to get a job. So it was, it was obviously very exhausting and just kind of running on, I don't know, adrenaline and grace for like
Yes.
a long period of time.
And youth.
And youth, yeah, totally. I know, I would never do that now. Never in a million years. A lot of support, though, from my husband. Like, I think we learned a lot about how to work as a team because I learned how to be really efficient. I was like, all right, the baby's sleeping for 2 hours. I'm going to knock out, a paper, or I'm going to study or work on a project or whatever. And so I did learn really good time management because I had short amount of time to get stuff done. And he was really good about that too. Like, he would put her to bed so I could work on school. And so I give him a lot of credit for supporting me through.
When our career paths veer in the opposite direction than we hoped or expected, we not only have to adapt to that new direction, we also have to grieve the loss of what we thought our life would look like. Even if we like the way things have turned out, there's a part of us that wonders what the other life would have looked like. While Maris Young, who we heard from earlier, planned to have a traditional career and ended up as a stay-at-home mom, Catherine Griesman had the opposite experience.
I've had a career, I went to graduate school, I have a master's degree, and I've worked in the same place for 11 years, and I like have certifications, and like I've made a career. It's not a glamorous one, but for what it is, I've made a career out of it, and that was never really what I wanted. My expectation and the story that I had told myself was that eventually I would just be a mom and I would stay home and I would have skills and I would have a backup plan if I ever needed to work, and I would, do that. But what I really wanted was to be a mom. And so I went into this thinking this story of my life, and it wasn't that. And I thought it's just going to be so joyful, and I'll have this new baby, and I've always wanted to be a mom, and it's just going to be like so wonderful. And and I was working at the time, and we decided that I would at least go down to part-time, and I was like, well, that's okay. Like, I got to take 4.5 months of maternity leave, which is pretty good compared to what I've heard, other people take 6 weeks or whatever. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know how they do that. Like, I was not a functioning human at 4.5 months. Like, I don't know how you go back to work after 6 weeks, but I was like, I at least get quite a bit of time, and like, this is going to be okay. Like, I'm going to enjoy these 4.5 months, and it's going to just be like this beautiful bonding time. It's going to be so amazing. And it was. I don't want to scare away anybody that's not had a child yet, but it was like being in the trenches.
After having their daughter, Catherine went back to work part-time as a hospital social worker, but then she and her husband decided to get a divorce, and she transitioned back to full-time work, now as a therapist at the hospital. So not only was she grieving the loss of her marriage, but also the career path she had chosen and expected.
And even now, right, I'm a full-time working mom, and that wasn't something that I had wanted or expected or thought was going to be my reality. So I've had to grieve that. I had to grieve going back to work at 4.5 months and giving my child to somebody else for 8 and 9 hours a day. But it was so good for me once I was able to identify what was happening for me, the grief, and name it, and then just give myself permission to say, it's okay. I'm going to feel this. Like, it's okay that I'm sad about this. but I have to carry on. And I've finally been able to move past it a little bit, and there's been a new thing, there's been a lot of grief for me, like getting divorced and now being a full-time working mom and not just a part-time working mom. And I've been sad about that. But I've also had a lot of joy, a lot of joy. I just wasn't prepared to experience it together. So it was really, really interesting.
Everyone we've heard from has made different career choices and will continue to make new choices about their career paths as they go. And every one of them is a fantastic mom. Which brings us to the second myth we need to bust, which is actually an evil two-headed dragon of a myth responsible for starting the infamous mommy war. This big myth is that there's only one right choice, that either working or staying at home is best for all moms, all kids, or society. But here's the thing. It's really good for women and for society to have women in the workforce. Women find fulfillment through work, and women bring unique and valuable perspective and talents to the workforce. And it's also really good for women and society when women spend time working at home as the primary caregivers for their kids. These women also tend to carry a large volunteer load, contributing to schools and community. Especially with our history of being told what to do, women should be wary of picking a side or dictating what any other mother should choose. Monica Tanner confronted this head-on as a college student.
When I went to college, I already had this idea that I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, and I took a college course. And I remember I had written a paper about wanting to stay at home with my children, and my professor ripped it up. Like literally, I got an F on the paper because she was like, "You are contributing to this glass ceiling. Like you are the reason why women don't, have more powerful positions and things like that." And I remember being like, "Oh my gosh." Like there are women out there who would crucify you for wanting to be a stay-at-home mom and not participate in the working world.
Monica did it anyway. She is now a stay-at-home mom, and she also runs a business on the side, helping mom entrepreneurs. She also hosts a podcast called On the Brighter Side of Marriage, and she teaches and coaches moms how to achieve success in marriage, life, and business. This problem goes both ways. There are people who are equally militant about staying home with your kids. But neither one of these is okay. Each mom has the right to decide for herself what's best for herself, her children, and her family. Each woman gets to define what success means to her and how she wants to contribute to the world. This spring break, I read an incredible book called Mommy Wars. It's a collection of 26 essays from different moms, all fabulous writers, about their own career choices. The essayists fall all over the career spectrum that we've been talking about, and I couldn't stop underlining and writing in the margins the whole way through. They're honest and opinionated. It's a phenomenal book, eye-opening to see all the thoughtful and often opposite perspectives. I love this quote by Lois Shea in her essay in this collection entitled Big House, Little House, Back House, Barn. Lois is a stay-at-home mom who also works from home as a writer. When she explained this to a publisher she knows, he said, "Lois, what you're doing is not only good for your daughter, it's good for the country." Which, Lois writes, sounded to me an awful lot like women belong in the home, and I knew you'd see it my way eventually. The fact is, though, it is good at least for the kids in my town, if not for the state of our union, that I'm available to coach Little League. It is also good that Laura has time to combat domestic violence, that Karen keeps the library running. It's also good for the country that we're all making some version of the same value statement. Kids matter, and the work of raising them is a good use of our energy and intellect. And yeah, our multiple college degrees. But our country can use whatever help it can get. Are we better for the country than the women who work full-time in boardrooms and operating rooms and newsrooms and universities and government? Of course not. Here's my admittedly utopian definition of feminism: self-determination for women. I am doing exactly what I want to be doing in this fleeting chapter of life that includes my daughter's childhood. Plus, it's good for the country. Her whole essay was just so good. It underscores that our career choices are deeply personal. And usually it's not a choice between right or wrong, but between good, better, or best. Here's a part of my conversation with Hannah Olson, a young mom of 4 children, 5 and under, who Instagrams at Freckled Han.
We are all different. Each kid is different. Each circumstance is different. And so if we just all believe that everyone out there is doing the best thing for their relationship, there literally is no wars. Like there's no reason to even talk about it, because it's just like some women, maybe because of financial reasons, they need to work. And that is because they're trying to provide for their children and they need to for their relationship. Or maybe it's not for financial reasons. Maybe it's because they have found that they are just a better mom. Maybe that relationship flourishes when they have work outside of the home, right? And like, we are not to make that call for anyone other than ourselves and our situation, because there's just, I don't know what it is about talking about motherhood that gets people like really heated really fast.
Yeah, I think it's partly defensive
Yeah.
because there is this lurking thing called mom guilt. And it's partly because it's such a value call, because the kind of mom that we are and the way we approach motherhood is so dependent on our values and our priorities, so that it immediately gets into that ambiguous territory. And yeah, we feel defensive.
I mean, for a long time, I did kind of wonder, because it was like, well, it does seem like women who are working outside of the home wouldn't have the same or like as strong of a relationship as women who are home all day, right? Like that's kind of what maybe you could assume.
Mhm.
And recently, I've kind of had the realization that just because I'm home with my kids all day, physically, mentally, I'm not. Like, I am not available to them like you would think that I would be, right?
Yeah.
Being a stay-at-home mom, that's just a job title. That's just you assuming the job of caretaking and laundry and dishes and meal planning and grocery store runs, like being a mother is a relationship. Being a stay-at-home mom is a job title. I so frequently just get in the groove doing the dishes and my kids need something and I'm like, oh yeah, in a second, and then by the time I'm done with the dishes, I've forgotten that they even wanted me. They're distracted, and then I'm doing the laundry and they're like, hey mom, can you do that? I'm like, oh yeah, when I'm done. And then that just goes on all day long, right? Like I'm really not giving them the mental time of day, even though I'm with them all day long. So like, who am I to think that is quote unquote better than someone else who may work all day outside of the home, but then when they come home, they're like 100% focused on their kids for an hour or however long, right?
Yeah. So let's continue this conversation, shall we? I have a lot of research to do as I develop more episodes about women and work. I want to know what your career has looked like and how it compares with what you expected it to look like. I want to know what you're passionate about and how you identify and pursue your purpose. I want to know what it felt like to go back to work when maternity leave was over, how you shift gears between work and home, how you make daycare decisions, how you manage work life and home life, and what you struggle with. I want to know how you stay-at-home moms structure your days, determine your own job descriptions, adapt to different stages of life, and pursue your own interests and passions. I want to know all the creative combinations of work and motherhood that fall in between those two sides of the spectrum. I want to respectfully debate whether the mommy wars are really a thing, whether we're really judging each other in our career choices or just imagining that we're judging each other. If mommy wars are really a thing, I want to talk about how we can stop them already and respect and support each other instead. I want to talk about our daughters and what we hope their career options and possibilities will be in the future. What will motherhood look like for them? So please join the How She Moms Facebook group, the group not the page, and add your voice to future episodes about how we work and how we mom. Thank you for listening to the How She Moms podcast. If you like it, tell a friend. The bigger the community, the more ideas. There are lots of ways you can add your ideas to the How She Moms community. We have a Facebook group where we share ideas about upcoming topics and help each other solve problems we're facing in motherhood. You can also follow How She Moms on Instagram for quick tips and ideas. And you can go to howshemoms.com where you'll find transcripts of episodes and lots of other great resources. Special thanks to my mom, Susan Singley, for recording my theme music. She played this song all the time when I was growing up, and to me, it's the soundtrack of motherhood.